Hello and welcome to yet another exciting episode in our podcast series, Unlocking Learning Pathways. I'm your host, Paula Harper Grant, and today we're diving into transformative learning experiences with a special guest, Mr. Jamar White. Now, Jamar is a public governance specialist who brings a wealth of experience and fresh insights on public sector employment relations and governance in the Caribbean. Welcome, Jamar.
Hi, good morning. Thank you.
So to kick things off, Jamar, can you share a memorable moment from your training that significantly impacted your understanding or attitude toward the topics which you would have learned?
Well, there were a number of moments, I guess, during the training, during the course. I think what was memorable for me was to meet all of my classmates for the first time. We were doing the course just coming on to the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, so we were still doing remote learning, and we all came together and shared our experiences from our different ministries and agencies and outlined how we viewed how things were going in the public service, how business was operating, how the nature of the public service was growing and changing. And I found that to be very insightful because when you're in your little bubble and you have your own experiences, you don't realize that there are other people out there who are going through similar things and facing similar challenges. And it was good to hear how my classmates were approaching the challenges and applying unique and strategic solutions to try to move things forward.
So where did you think that was the moment that stood out? Why do you think that was so special?
Well, because I guess there's a perception in terms of what government is all about, particularly the traditional views of people in government for a long time, security of tenure, longevity of service, um, providing a public service in different areas, and you started to realize that because of the changing global landscape in terms of the labor force, um, when when you see that there's a change towards entrepreneurship, lots of younger people now are not as excited to get into the public service. People want to start their own businesses. People want to um, get into their own enterprises and make money. We realized that we were within a transitional period or a transitional phase where government was moving from what it was before to what it will look like in the future. So I found that to be very interesting because we all shared similar sentiments about bureaucracy and red tape and the traditional way of doing things, and how we all wanted to bring the knowledge that we gained from the course into our workplace and bring about that change that could lead the public service into the future.
Now that's very interesting because one of the biggest challenges that people would speak about, as you correctly said, would be the transfer of the training. So you get all of this knowledge. You're anxious, you want to use it, but you don't have the opportunities to put it into practice. So how then would you say that you've been able to apply the skills and the knowledge that you gained during the program, into your own professional life?
That's an interesting question. Of course there are challenges with trying to implement change. Change is a big deal. I mean, people study change management. Um, so I think it is one step at a time, a little bit at a time, one person at a time. So I start through my department, sharing the knowledge and experience that I gained from the course, and hoping that that would then trickle down to the officers within the department. And then we step out further and we share that knowledge and experience with the other officers in the ministry, and hope that it continues to branch out and spread and forms a culture of a new thinking in terms of how to operate in the public service. So I've had meetings with my team. I've outlined to them the things that I've learned, brought new ideas in terms of how we can go about business. I think one of the things we're very keen about is developing the youth, sharing the knowledge and learning and transferring that to the youth. I think they're the future, of course, and we've done that through a number of the programs in the department. So we've provided scholarships for Barbadians. We've done career showcases to teach students about potential careers in the area of energy. I work in the Ministry of Energy and Business. And We've done a number of different initiatives. The ministry is actually about to launch a new exciting initiative where we're going to ask students to bring their business minds to the fore and come to us with ideas in terms of how to make business out of energy. So we're very excited about that. So those are just some of the ways that I've tried to transfer the knowledge and share my experiences with my team and hope that that would then trickle down and spread out across the ministry and create a new culture of excellence.
That's very important in terms of creating the new culture of excellence. But so then I'm going to assume that having gained this knowledge now, have you then made it an easier pathway for persons then to also be able to share when they study, to be able to implement it within your department? And if so, tell me some of the things that you've done.
Yes, well, I can't take all the credit for that myself. During the pandemic, government instituted learning day sessions, and our ministry took that on board very keenly. And we would host sessions basically every week where officers from different departments would present on their areas of expertise, or we would have people from the Ministry of Public Service come in and talk about leave and talk about salaries and vacations. Explain some of the things that people may not be aware of, make them more aware in terms of their income taxes, etc. So I found that that was one of the good ways in which we were able to transfer knowledge and understand the, the work of the ministry and other ministries in terms of how they contribute to the development of the country on a whole, through the provision of the various services that government would provide. So we instituted that learning day program in the ministry. We also have brainstorming sessions where we sit down and we discuss ideas and plans. We're in the middle of our Energy Month of activities, and the ministry has devised a number of different activities, or came up with a number of different activities that we believe would be appealing to the public, that would also get the interest, generate more interest in the energy sector and the business sector, outline the synergies between the two. A lot of people don't fully understand how energy and business can work together, and basically sensitize the public about the benefits of energy and the benefits of saving energy, conserving energy, being energy efficient, and making Barbados energy resilient. So those are just some of the ways that we can go about sharing the knowledge and also gaining knowledge from others around us.
Well, that sounds like a very healthy approach. But I know it can't be all a bed of roses. So tell me about some of the challenges that you would have faced and how you've been able to utilize what you learned to overcome it.
Well, I think I alluded to it a bit earlier in terms of the bureaucracy. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of red tape in government. You have to go through this step, that's followed by the next step. This a specific person is responsible for this specific step. If they're not in office, things have to pause. If they're out on leave, things slow down. So there's still a lot of red tape and procedural steps that you have to go through to get things done in government. And you know the government has been trying to improve that workflow generally across the public sector by going digital, by cutting down on the red tape, on the steps and duplication, etc. But I still find it to be a major challenge to getting things done in government. Sometimes, unfortunately, we're just too slow, and we're not responsive to change. We tend to be a bit reactive instead of proactive in terms of how we operate. So that's still a major challenge, but with all challenges, you have to face them head on and try to find solutions to get around those challenges, or to at least mitigate the challenges. So in considering that, I mean, what I've done is to continue to try to share my knowledge and expertise I've gained during the course in terms of how we can be more strategic leaders. We did a course on strategic leadership, on how we can go about better improving change management, to see change as an opportunity and not as a threat to our jobs or our security or our future. And yeah, I think communication is key to trying to change the mindset and change the culture and develop that culture of excellence, as I said before. So I've been playing my part in communicating with those around me in terms of how we can do better and be better.
Now, I'm going to go back a little bit and let's talk a bit more about the program that you did. Tell me about that program and also share some of the key insights or revelations that would have kind of changed your perspective.
Well, I completed the postgraduate diploma in public sector management at the University of the West Indies. It was facilitated by the Ministry of the Public Service. I was a bit hesitant to do it at first because I'm a geologist by training, so from a technical background, and I was a bit daunted to go into the other side of it, the administrative side. And I'm happy that I actually did the course because I feel like I'm more rounded. Um, I feel that I've gained knowledge in an area that traditionally I would not have had a great interest, which is the administration and management within the public sector. And I think it's very relevant, particularly for technical officers, to get that exposure to understand the different components of how the public sector works and how the technical work that I do falls in line with the greater vision for the government. So I was very interested in terms of the courses that we did. I mentioned before we did strategic leadership and change management. We did courses on public sector relations, labor relations, project management, policy analysis. We did courses on e-government. So it was a very well-rounded course, and I gained knowledge and exposure to a range of different issues and challenges that would face the public sector. So it was a very interesting course, and definitely would recommend that anyone who's interested in being well-rounded in the public sector and understanding the nuts and bolts and the different components of how the government works to take this course.
So then how do you see these insights shaping your future decisions or approaches, whether personally or professionally?
Well, it has been very transformational for me in terms of my thinking. Um, I was always more technically inclined in terms of the work that I do, but then I realized that the administration, um, the other components of what government does are equally important. So it has given me an appreciation for things such as simple things you may not even consider with, people may have grievances. How do you go about working with the unions? Why that is important? Why labor relations are important? Why proper project management is important in terms of the projects that we do, and the need for a better understanding of technology and how technology can improve efficiency within and across government. So it has shaped my thinking in terms of the holistic picture of what government is, and gotten me out of the mindset of just think about the technical work that I do and how that impacts government. I now have a more holistic view of what is required to move things forward.
Now, I find your research on public governance and contemporary employment issues very fascinating. And I just was wondering, could you just share how it ties in into your personal learning journey?
Well, it's more from, as I said, from a perspective of how government works. So, in undertaking the course, I did, as I mentioned, a number of different core areas for training, and I looked at public governance and the labor market. And what I found was interesting was how it has changed over the years, in terms of being from having a heavy presence of men in the workforce now to having a lot more women in the workforce, in terms of the age structure of the workforce. Before, people came in thinking about longevity, being career civil servants. We're seeing that shifting a bit. The impacts of globalization, technology, and key global challenges. So things such as wars, um, the oil crisis, the global financial crisis, pandemic, how they have changed the nature of labor relations and the nature of the public service and the nature of employment relations across the world, not even just in Barbados. And we're seeing now that trend, as I mentioned before, towards more entrepreneurship, more contract workers. So I did a project on public governance and labor relations, and I found that very interesting because it helped me to better understand the transition that governments and the public sector has gone through over the years. So looking at when the workplace was skewed heavily towards male workers in the industrialized sector, manufacturing sector, now to the present where you have a lot more women in the workplace. The age structure has changed where you traditionally had people working for very long career civil servants. Um, that seems to be changing with people retiring. Also, in terms of the use of technology, etc., and how critical events in the past have shaped the global labor force and the workforce. So things such as wars, things such as the oil embargo, the global financial meltdown, the pandemic. These things have changed the structure and the nature of the labor market, probably more so than many other things that we would have thought about. So now we are seeing in the present a greater entrepreneurial spirit. People want to be their own bosses, they want to control their own destiny. Um, they no longer think of the idea of being a long-term worker as being attractive. So how do we get around that? How do we address the issue of lower subscriptions to unions? People don't necessarily believe in the union model anymore. Um, you're having more contract workers. So it's a very interesting dynamic looking at how the labor force has changed and how it has been impacted by things such as technology, globalization, pandemics, etc. And then what that means for the present, and then how it will manifest itself in the future in terms of what will government look like 10, 15, 20 years from now. What will the labor force look like? Where will the focus be? How will things such as artificial intelligence and machine learning and clouds, how will they impact how work is done, how we operate within the workplace? I'm very intrigued to see how the government service changes and evolves as we move into the future and how we can be responsive and proactive and bring about meaningful change.
Now, I've been listening to you with some fascination. You're speaking about how these regional or even international issues could inform broader governance models. How then do you see education and training addressing these challenges?
That is a good question because I think we are grappling with that as we speak. You're well aware that the Ministry of Education has outlined a plan to refocus education and rethink education in terms of planning for the future curriculum for the youth of the country and how do you prioritize learning and training and education and how do you reshape what we traditionally saw as our educational model. And I think it's something that will continue to garner a lot of attention because we recognize that the youth are the future. So we will have to do our research, of course, look at trends in the industry, see where things are going. I think we're doing that as we speak in terms of we're seeing more programs for robotics, seeing people offering training in the areas of artificial intelligence and looking at the jobs of the future and the careers of the future and the businesses of the future and seeing how we can ensure that we train our Barbadians, our fellow workers, our friends, our family, our children, and train them to be ready to operate and function effectively in a world that continues to change. So I think we're doing a good job in that regard. I think we need to move a bit quicker. That's always the challenge. We tend to be a bit slow and reactive. If we can be a bit more proactive and do our analyses, do our research and our planning, and put these plans in place, I think that's another challenge, the implementation challenge, where we have the great ideas, we sit down, we discuss them, we formulate plans, but then we kind of fall down in how we implement and follow through on those plans, and how we monitor and evaluate the progress and the success of those plans. So I think that's where the emphasis needs to be placed on implementing the plans that we put in place, and we recognize where we want to go, and making sure that we're able to track the progress so that we can kind of recenter ourselves if we're going in the wrong direction, and make sure that we plan the way forward to balance out or to address any challenges that we may face.
Now, we've seen recently that there's been an increase in terms of the work load of many public officers. We're able to have increased. And a lot of people are working under maybe high pressure situations. Do you have any tips for applying learning in terms of being able to function in these high pressure situations?
I can only give my, I guess, personal perspective. I don't profess to be an expert in that area at all. It is true. The work of government has become more fast-paced, more intense, and that is reflective of the general changes in the global labor market in terms of things that are going on around the world. We are changing and evolving very rapidly at a pace that I would say is unprecedented, in terms of new technologies coming on board, in terms of new strategies and approaches to how we do work, how we do business. Things are coming at lightning speed. So we've had to adjust to that change and try to ensure that we keep abreast of the developments in the industry so that we don't be left behind. It's very easy to get left behind in this fast-paced, dynamic, developing world. So we definitely have to continue with the training. We definitely have to continue with putting information out there. Misinformation is very easy to find with people having access to the internet and Google and forming their own opinions. I think we need to make sure that we keep the facts out there. And we also need to ensure that we focus on the mental component of work. And that's something that has been neglected for many years. We think we come to work, we do our job, put in a good shift, pat on the back, you go home, but we have to take care of ourselves as well. Find time to rest, find time to relax, find time to do the things that bring us joy, because it can't always be work. In a fast-paced environment, it can get very stressed very easily. And we know in Barbados we have a high prevalence of non-communicable diseases, and people are not taking care of themselves. So I think that's one of the areas that we should focus on through the Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education. I think they're doing good work in terms of sensitizing people about their diets and work-life balance, finding that work-life balance. So it's a mix between training and upskilling and improving your capabilities and capacity to work, and also balancing that with downtime and recreational time so that you have a good balance between work and play. I think for me, that would be my recommendation in terms of how to move forward. There's also a slight sidebar in terms of something else, in terms of government as well. A lot of people are retiring, a lot of people are seeking opportunities outside of government, and that means then that the persons who are left, have to carry a bit more of the burden and do a bit more of the work. So hopefully, through the exercises being done by the Ministry of the Public Service to look at rationalizing the positions across government, that we can come up with a mix that works well, that allows people to work but not be overworked or burdened, and allows us to be efficient, allows us to be effective, but without causing a drain on the people who do the work. So that would be my personal opinion.
Now, I'm going to throw you under the bus for a little bit, though, because you talk about work-life balance. What does that really look like? What is your idea of the perfect work-life balance?
Well, again, for me, it would be different because everybody has different interests and hobbies and things that they find interesting to do in their downtime. For me, a solid shift of work, results oriented. I mean, we all feel good when our projects are successful, when we are able to do something meaningful to impact the society by providing a service, providing opportunities for people to learn and grow, but also to get that downtime. So for me, I play sports, I like fishing, I like to hang out. So it's to find that balance. I think everybody needs to understand what works for them and find the balance that works for them. So I would say to try to get in a bit of both, you know, some work and some relaxation as well.
Before we wrap up then, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to professionals considering further training or career development?
I would say first and foremost, do something that you love, do something that you enjoy, whether it be something related to your area of expertise where you've been trained already, or something that you see in the future that may become a big component of the way how government works. So it's good to look to the future and see how you can grow and develop. I would say do honest introspection and look at the areas where you may be weaker, because we all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and see how we can build up capacity in those areas to become well-rounded or more rounded and grounded in terms of the extent of our knowledge and experience and expertise. I would say that from the course, I've learned not to be biased towards things that I may not be familiar with or areas that I may not be comfortable with. And I'm happy that I gave the course a chance, because now I feel like I better understand public sector management, public sector governance, and how that relates to the technical work that I do. So I would end on that note as my small piece of advice. Do something you love, look towards the future in terms of how you can grow, look at your weaknesses, see how you can develop those so that you become more rounded person and open up yourself to more opportunities in the future, because as much as we plan, we don't know what the future holds. So it's better to be as prepared as possible so that we can shift and adjust to make sure that we're happy with where we're going.
That's excellent advice, Jamar. You sound like a very wise man. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. It was a pleasure having you here.
And thank you as well, Paul. I really enjoyed the interview.
And that brings us to the end of another episode of Unlocking Learning Pathways. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Don't forget to like and subscribe and join us next time as we continue exploring how learning shapes our professional and personal lives. Until then, stay curious and keep unlocking new pathways.